welcome back to BlockTV. Time for Chainbreakers, where we talk to the major players and influencers in the cryptocurrency space. Now today, very happy to be joined by David Mercer. He's the CEO of LMAX Exchange Group from London, in the UK, obviously. David has been building up LMAX Digital. It's a UK-based institution, spot cryptocurrency exchange that recently clocked, and I hope you're sitting down, at least 1 billion in one-day trading volumes, my word. Now, the firm counts dozens of banks and trading firms as its clients. David, I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Joop.
Lovely. Now, your numbers suggest that you're enjoying smooth sailing. You're definitely one of the success stories in the sphere. 220 institutional clients, record trading in June 2019, my word, 8.5 billion traded in June. What is the biggest challenge facing? I mean, you're smack in it and you seem to have cracked it, but what is the biggest challenge that you think, or the challenges facing the crypto market these days?
Look, it's still very early in the development of this nascent market, but there's three big challenges. I'd say, let's call it the ABC of the crypto world. So the A is for adoption and acceptance. So we need greater adoption worldwide. If you look at somewhere like Japan, for example, you can buy a coffee with Bitcoin today. So we need greater adoption and greater acceptance throughout the marketplace. The B is for banking. We need better banking. At the moment, the largest banks in the world aren't banking digital companies. Put simply, it's difficult even for LMAX Digital, part of an FCA regulated group, to get a bank account with what you'd know as a normal high street bank. So we're using the crypto banks that everyone else uses at the moment. And then look, the biggest challenge is the C. And the C is for credit. At the moment, there's no credit disintermediation in the crypto world. It's very much an old school DVP, delivery versus payment mechanism. So in my traditional world of fiat foreign exchange, you have banks being credit intermediaries. So what that means is that all the way through the chain, you might trade with your broker who trades with the bank. And all the way through that, you have credit intermediation. In the crypto world, we're all expected to send fiat currency and coin to people we don't know on the other side of the planet. And if you like, Satoshi started with a decentralized, trustless framework. Well, unfortunately, at the moment, we have zero trust. For this market to grow, certainly for the institutional market to grow, we need some better credit intermediation. LMAX Digital, as part of a larger LMAX Exchange Group, is seen as a trusted counterparty. But frankly, we don't have the balance sheet that you'd expect from, one of the behemoth banks that would allow the asset managers to come in, that would allow the pension funds to come in. So in a nutshell, those are the challenges, the ABC of crypto.
The ABC of crypto, I would have even added an R at the end there to talk about regulation. And I'm so glad you touched on that, because we're speaking a day after yet another hearing in the United States on Capitol Hill by the Senate Banking Committee. Needless to say, not as sexy possibly as the Libra Calibre hearings from 2 weeks ago. But definitely there we had the CEO of Circle answering some questions. It's clear, maybe that US legislators understand that they will not be able to ban crypto, but can, the road to institutionalization or more institutionalization of cryptocurrencies moves through regulation. Where do you think we stand when it comes to regulation, both in Europe versus the United States?
So I think the United States has got themselves in a bit of a tailspin. I mean, traditionally, they ban leverage trading, for example, for private consumers. And yet, everyone was allowed to buy Bitcoin without any regulation going through a regulatory brokerage. So if you look in Europe, for example, under ESMA rules, if any private consumer wants to buy a product, from mortgage products to single stock equities, they have to pass a suitability test. And that says, are you over 18 and do you understand this product? The answer is yes, you proceed. It then says, okay, do you understand the risks involved in this? There is zero consumer protection today in the crypto world globally. not just the United States, but in Europe and in Asia Pacific. And it's very important that we protect private consumers. So that's one side of the market. And I would encourage regulators to adopt the existing regulatory frameworks we have to protect private consumers. Now, on the institutional space, and LMAX Digital is squarely in the institutional space, you must let this marketplace breathe. It's a wholesale market. It's banks and the largest proprietary trading firms in the world exchanging risk with each other. We can create the platform, we can create the benchmark, if you like, for an institutional market, and then the retail market can benefit from that. But they must be made aware of the risks. And banning, by the way, banning products doesn't work because you then criminalize the users of it. You can't criminalize someone in Wyoming who wants to own a Bitcoin because they can. They can just go and buy it from the Seychelles or from Hong Kong or from somewhere in Europe. It's that easy to do, but what you must do is educate them and protect them and ensure they deal with regulated brokers. Banning this space will not work.
It will not work. It's impossible, and I think they do understand that. But I do agree that one can argue that basically in the United States, especially with all these hearings, they're slightly behind, and not that they have missed the boat, but all these that they're not moving fast enough. And you did mention Asia, but I want to touch on where you're at right now, because apropos the Satoshi Nakamoto original dream, and you clearly you're a wheeler and player and very successful exchange head in Europe, but ultimately many people who are evangelists, one can call the Bitcoin evangelists, are waiting for regular markets to crash. You're in the midst right now of a country that one can argue is about to make a very big decision. The pound itself hasn't been doing so well over the course of the last few days, clearly because of everybody being afraid most likely of a hard exit. I'm wondering with you, let's say there is a hard exit from the UK, you're based there. What does that do for cryptos? Do you find them turning to cryptos because of the fear of traditional markets failing, or is that even too early to talk about?
A couple of questions in there, Yael. I think it's a myth that people are leaving traditional capital markets to move into crypto.
True.
It's just a pure myth. Most sensible people, though, and I mean institutional fund managers, private investors, do have single-digit percentage points of their portfolio in the crypto space. I, for one, wouldn't tell you to buy Bitcoin or Ethereum or another coin, but I would say in your pension fund, in your long-term investment portfolio, you should have some exposure to the blockchain because it will change our world, it will change our lives in the decades to come. With regards to Brexit, we're seeing zero
reaction.
movement from fiat into crypto because of Brexit. Brexit's a challenge. It's a challenge to the City of London. It's a challenge for the whole of Europe. The only thing it's good for at the moment is our export because basically sterling is so weak. But we have a tough decade ahead. We all must assume there will be a Brexit. We must prepare for that. We've prepared for that. We've bought a brokerage in Cyprus so that we can deal in Europe. Most of the banks have moved to Frankfurt, Paris, Amsterdam. Everyone's prepared. Capital markets will continue. I happen to believe that London will remain the global hub for capital markets. It has been for centuries, and I think we can continue.
Okay, and fascinating your take on that. Let's talk about LMAX. You appeal, as you said, to big funds and banks, and when they do ultimately decide to invest in crypto. Have you seen a spike in that? Have you seen, because the crypto space has gone through ups and downs. We saw the ICO booms. I mean, there's bad press. There seems to be good press leading up. But how do you get to where you're at right now?
As I said earlier, I think we're right at the start. We're very pleased with the growth. This is the 5th exchange the LMAX Exchange Group has launched. We launched it only 15 months ago. It's the fastest growing exchange ever. It was profitable within 5 months. That's never happened to me before. The first exchange we launched took 3 years to break even. We trade $20 billion a day of fiat currency, but after only 15 months, we traded $1 billion of cryptocurrency.
Right.
And what we're seeing is the most agile of the institutions, and that's generally the funds, maybe the high frequency funds, proprietary trading funds in Chicago, in New York, in London. They're just transitioning their fiat business into crypto. So they're adopting it well. I think at the moment we're onboarding one of these significant players every week.
Wow.
And they're used to engaging in an institutional marketplace. So they engage with us on our crypto exchange on LMAX Digital exactly the same way as they engage on the other 4 institutional exchanges we run. The big thing we're waiting for, and it's back to the ABC, is we're waiting for the banks to come. When the banks come, you have credit intermediation, then you have real money, then you have the asset managers, then we will really have an institutional crypto marketplace. That's why we established LMAX Digital. At the moment, the market is mostly a retail market, right? The institutional market needs to develop so that everyone can benefit.
Okay, do you think that, and apropos, the banks are not there yet, many people are saying that the road to mass adoption will come through a very big player that will enter. What do you think of Libra? I'm wondering with you, because many will argue it's not a cryptocurrency in many ways. But do you think this whole entrance of big tech companies into the sphere, or saying that they're playing within the sphere, does that do anything to for the road to mass adoption?
I think it's fantastic that the big tech companies are trying. And certainly, little old LMAX Exchange Group isn't going to criticize the behemoth that is Facebook, that is Mark Zuckerberg. There is no doubt that institution has the capability to be the biggest bank in the world, should it choose. Exactly. I'm not sure that Libra is the right approach for that. And I'm mostly interested in who's missing rather than who's in that project. You know, I see no Apple, I see no Google, I see no Amazon, and I see no banks. So, and already there's been a lot of pushback from regulators, and this thing hasn't even launched yet. So I'm not sure that's the way forward, but make no mistake, companies like this who have so many eyeballs have the ability to transition capital markets. So we all need to look, we all need to listen, and if and when it comes, we need to adopt it. Because if their 2, 3, 4 billion users decide to use this currency, then guess what?
That's mass adoption. Yeah, no, entirely. Now, you're clearly a big believer of blockchain. Just a bit about you. How did you come around to enter the sphere, to believe in blockchain? You said that this can be the second great industrial revolution. We, of course, here will tend to agree with you, just given our name, BlockTV. But how did you enter the sphere?
We were pulled into the market, if I'm honest with you. So we're relatively small in the exchange space. We've got 130 people. We have 11 offices worldwide. And we're focusing on our core business, which is fiat. But we are a fintech business. So what we do for a living is develop low latency institutional grade exchanges. So what happened towards the end of 2017 was my institutional customers in the fiat space said, David, we need you to build a cryptocurrency exchange. We need an institutional exchange to transfer risk with like-minded counterparties. Right. Now, personally, I was a big believer in the blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies already, but we may not have had the scope to go into that. But then when these significant players said, David, we need this, because all we have out there is retail platforms who are very good sales and marketing engines, then we researched it. And what we discovered was that we were 90% of the way there. So basically, it's the same technology, the same trusted counterparty, and the same transparency that we offer in our fiat markets. So it literally took us 3 months to integrate to the blockchains, to develop a wallet and custodial solution. And we launched in May 2018. And as I say, we couldn't be happy with the growth of LMAX Digital.
It is quite remarkable. Finally, in the sphere of blockchain believer, where do you see yourselves, let's say in 10 years, let's give it 10 years, a decade from now?
10 years from now, I would hope that LMAX Digital is the primary cryptocurrency institutional exchange.
And the world is there, and the world and big institutions have come along for the ride. You see
the
that
market
happening?
needs it. The market needs it 100%. I mean, let's be clear about this. Where does my belief stem from? The offices, the buildings you see in Manhattan, in the city of London, what happens inside those will change dramatically because of blockchain technology. The biggest challenges we have in capital markets are payments, settlement, and reconciliation. Blockchain technology can transform all of that. So why is that relevant for a cryptocurrency? Well, guess what? For payment, settlement, and reconciliation, you have to have something of value to transfer. That value transference will be through a digital asset or a digital currency.
Yep.
I couldn't tell you if that's going to be a digital pound, a digital dollar, or a digital euro, or whether indeed it will be Bitcoin.
I was about to say, or Libra, or Googly, or who knows, but one of them.
It will be a fork. You know, we know that. It will be a fork. We have to let this develop. This is a scientific experiment. We're right at the start. It's currently inefficient. It's not instantaneous. Sure. But it will develop, it will fork, it will transition all our lives. It will transition capital markets. I hope that LMAX Digital can become a part of that and become the primary venue, which is the venue for price discovery and where all of those large institutions trade. I firmly believe, I have 23 banks on my fiat platform. I firmly believe when they start to trade, they will trade on LMAX Digital.
Hoping the same for you. Sounds like it. David Mercer is the CEO of LMAX Exchange Group from London. Thank you so much for joining us today on Chainbreakers, your BlockTV. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.